Good evening, guys, and happy Saturday to all of your sunshiny faces. Well, guys, I am going to get to bed. I was up not super early this morning, but actually earlier than I normally am awake. My mom came and woke me up at like, I think 10:30. And normally, especially Fridays after a football game, I probably sleep until about noon. Just because, like, it's funny too, last night, because we were at home, and a lot of the coaches were like going out to celebrate afterwards, so they kind of kept the coaches meeting from like last night short. Normally they always have a coaches meeting after the football game on Friday, but because it was homecoming and because they won, a lot of the coaches were going out to like celebrate afterwards, so it was relatively short. We were back home by like maybe 10:30 last night, but I still ended up kind of staying up late. And like Jack even said it too, he's like, it's just like after a football game I'm so like, you know, just like buzzing from the game that like I can't sleep. And like, you know, and it was like, it was a good game last night. It was a good homecoming game, and so it was kind of the same thing too. Like I couldn't really fall asleep, like, you know, and my brain is still like going, you know, from the game. Like I'm still thinking about stuff, you know, like that kind of thing. So like, and again too, like they had fireworks. I think I mentioned that yesterday, but they had fireworks the halftime show too. So it's just like, there's just a lot that was going on, you know, there was a ton of stuff that was going on at the game. And, you know, all of that in addition to, you know, like just the game itself as well, and the highs and the emotion from the game and stuff like that. So, you know, again, like I was saying, there's a lot, I think, you know, just like Friday nights, it's difficult to go to sleep afterwards and fall asleep and get good sleep. And so that's why a lot of times, like I said, on Saturdays I will wake up fairly late, because I probably went to bed pretty late on a Friday night. But like, again too, Jack says the same thing, like, you know, it's hard for him to fall asleep. My dad is normally exhausted because, again too, like work days, he gets up at like 3 in the morning. So like Fridays he gets up at 3 in the morning, and then he stays up for the entire football game. And like I said, there have been like those few games that we played that were like really far away. When we get back to the school at like 11 o'clock, like they stayed the one night, I think it was until like after midnight, and or close to like 1 o'clock, I think we got home or something like that. Like it was really late, one of those games. But last night again too, we got home fairly early, but I still went to bed and woke up kind of late. So, but my mom woke me up earlier today, like I said, than I normally wake up on a Saturday at least. So because she was making dessert to bring to my aunt and uncle's house, because they were having their like fall block party. So my aunt was telling me that they do it, I think they might do it twice a year, but I think now they've switched to doing it just in the fall, like for Halloween. And it's really cool. Like we had a block party when I was little at our old house, and I think that one of our neighbors threw one like on our block. It was like kind of on our street, but it was like one block kind of like up from us. I think was where they actually had it like marked off, but they kind of like invited everybody sort of from around the neighborhood like for the block party. And but I think that was one of the years when Jack was in youth football, and it was like on a Saturday and we had a football game, so we weren't able to go. But the one that we went to when I was like really little was like I remember it being like everybody was just like out in the street like doing stuff, you know, like things like that. Whereas my aunt and uncle's, like their block party was kind of like every house kind of like was like had like people, and like, you know, it was like a party, but everybody was celebrating at the same time on the block. And like I said, I think everybody kind of just does it differently. But I had never really been to like, I again too was really little when we had the one that was at our old house, so it's like I don't really remember entirely all of, you know, like everything that kind of went on and like what we did and like that kind of stuff. But like my aunt and uncle, they were like hosting like a dinner for like us and like their friends and family that they invited, and I think their neighbors as well. But then there was like people further down the street that was like doing other things, but they all like come together as like a whole like block, I guess, kind of to do like, they had like a bounce house for like little kids, they had like a DJ, and like did like different activities and stuff like that too. So they did like, I think, a musical chairs, like an egg toss, they did like a mummy wrapping kind of thing, you know, like in like toilet paper, you know, like they did a whole bunch of different like, you know, activities and like that kind of stuff as well. But then they also, because my aunt said now they've been doing it in the fall, they do it where like all of the neighbors will put out like candy, like treats on the block, and then like again too, the little kids like go around and get dressed up or whatever, and they go and like trick or treat. But they also have like drinks for the adults as well, so like adult goodies as well, and like, you know, that kind of thing. And everybody does like a different thing. So my aunt and uncle, they had like a spiced apple cider kind of thing, I think, or something like that. But it was, you know, it was really cool like to get to see that, you know, and all the neighbors like have all their decorations up and like all that kind of stuff too. So it was a really cool experience. But like my aunt and uncle, so they had like a pretty good amount of people, but it was between like them and kind of like their neighbors as well. So like, but again too, like their party, you know, again like in their front yard was a pretty, you know, decent size also. But it was actually funny because my dad, so my dad is younger than my uncle, and my dad's actually the youngest of three and my uncle's the oldest. But he was friends with like, I think they were maybe close-ish neighbors, but their neighbors, they had like a few siblings I think as well. But one of them had like an older brother and then also a younger brother that was like my dad's age, and then the older brother was like my uncle's age, I think, or close to that. Like they were friends, and then like again too, my dad was friends with like the younger brother. And so the older brother who's friends with my uncle, he was there, and like my dad hasn't really like seen them like in a while. Like they're still like friends, like, you know, that kind of stuff, but like they just haven't like really gotten together all that much or anything like that. So him and his wife were there, and like it's funny, I don't really remember them, but I remember hearing about them. Like my dad talks about them like still all the time, and like, you know, again too, but I remember hearing about them like specifically, like, and I don't remember necessarily like meeting them or anything like that. I probably did when I was little, because again too, like I remember like vaguely maybe going to like some events, you know, at some point or something like that, you know, like that kind of stuff, maybe when I was like real little. Don't really, like I said, I knew like once my mom and dad like said like, oh, this is so and so and so and so, I was like, oh, I know who that is, but like I didn't recognize them at all. Like I said, I probably maybe had never met them or maybe did, but like I just knew because my dad, like I said, you know, he talks about them. My uncle would like talk about them too. You'd be like, oh, you know, like this and that. And I think that they have a 4th of July party, which I think my dad went to a handful of years ago, but I don't think we ended up going because I think I didn't know who was gonna be there and stuff like that. And it turned out my cousin was actually there too, so I was like, okay, like that would have been good, and I would have, you know, like ended up having somebody to like talk to and things like that. But now I feel like maybe it'd also be a little bit easier since we were like there for, you know, this and everything, and being able to talk and, you know, like that kind of thing. But the other thing that was really cool is my aunt actually, they got like catered food. So they actually ended up having like tacos, but they had it like almost like on a Blackstone, and they cooked it like fresh, like right there, which was so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But the really cool thing too, my aunt, she is so sweet. She was like, I double checked, I made sure. She's like, they have quesadillas, so if you want to get a quesadilla, like you can, you know. She's like, I know you don't eat meat, and you know, so she actually went over there though later, and she was like, oh, I talked to them and they can make you a like bean and rice like tacos, like, because they also have beans and rice. She's like, they can add it into the tacos, and then you can just add like the fixings, you know, like on top of it and everything like that. And I was like, that's so sweet. Like my aunt like is so like conscious of making sure that I have something to eat every time like I go somewhere, because normally I'm like, okay, like I just kind of like pick at food, you know, like I might just eat appetizers then, like if there's not anything like really there for me to eat. Like that's happened sometimes where it's like a predominantly meat food, you know, kind of place or whatever. My aunt's so sweet. She like always makes sure that there's like something for me to eat there. And like the same thing too, like when we went over to their house for the 4th of July, or not 4th, I think it was a little after the 4th of July, but it wasn't this last year, it was the year before that. And she's like, oh, like, you know, I tried to look for like, you know, a vegetarian burger. She was like, I didn't know where to find them and stuff like that, because I ended up bringing my own. And I was like, that's totally okay. I was like, I have tons in the freezer, you know, like we just brought like a defrosted, you know, burger and just cooked it there like with the rest of the burgers. But I was like, you know, I was like, don't worry about it. She's always so sweet, making sure that there's like things, you know, for everybody, that, you know, that like kind of fits for them too. like, she even, it was like asking my mom, I remember when we went over there for that 4th of July, it was a handful of days, I think, after 4th of July, it was like the 7th or something, but she had like asked, she was like, oh, what do you guys like to drink? You know, she like made sure like we had like tea, like my mom's like, oh, I like to drink like, you know, iced tea, and so my aunt made sure that there was like iced tea there, you know, like all that kind of stuff. And so like she's just so sweet about that, like making sure that everybody's like very well fed. And so like I said, it was a really good time, like really good time to get to hang out with like everybody and like talk and, like I said, kind of catch up, and like again to also put names to the faces of like people that like my dad has talked about like growing up, because he grew up in the city, grew up in Chicago. Like my aunt and uncle still live in the city, but you know, like to actually be able to like kind of like be like, oh, like these are the people that my dad grew up with, like, you know, again to like listening to like some of those conversations and stuff like that. I was like, that's really cool. But like I said, my dad was like the little brother, you know, kind of thing, and like they were like the older brothers, so like while they, you know, maybe had some stories and stuff like that to talk about, like they weren't like, you know, like super close. You know, my dad, like I said, he was like the little brother, the little annoying brother. But it was really cool, like I said, to like get to catch up with everybody and talk with everybody and stuff like that also, and just hang out. It was a really fun day. It was a long day, because like I said, we ended up, you know, like got up early, then me and my dad had to run to Jewel to like get, my mom made a dessert, but then we also brought like extra like dessert as well. And then we found out too, our Jewel has a Starbucks inside of it, so we also got a Starbucks. So I was filled up on my Frappuccino this morning too, and then we ended up coming back, and then very shortly after that we ended up leaving, and then we were gone for like up until like late in the evening. I think we got home like 9 o'clock or something like that. So again, it was a really fun time. It was really cool to get to hang out there, and the weather too was really nice. Like that's what my aunt was saying. She's like, sometimes it's kind of a toss-up whether or not we're gonna have nice weather, you know, for like this, but it was really nice. I think it was maybe a little bit warmer actually than last night. We also weren't out as late as we were last night at the football game, but I remembered to wear boots and thicker socks so my feet weren't cold, unlike yesterday at the football game. Like I was good for the most part at the football game, it was just my feet were cold, and that was because I was wearing gym shoes and like athletic socks, and they were really thin, so my feet were freezing cold at the football game. But other than that, I was good for today. Like I had my jacket with me and everything, and I was toasty. Plus they had a fire going and stuff like that. Like it was just a really cool atmosphere, like, you know, like the whole block, you know, like outside to like party and stuff like that. Like some people had like TV outside, they were like watching college football games, like, you know, all that kind of stuff, and you could kind of, you know, just like go around and like talk to the neighbors, introduce yourself, you know, like that kind of thing. And, you know, just like kind of get to be in that neighborhood atmosphere, but then also too, like, you know, you invite people to your party and get to hang out with them, and, you know, like that kind of stuff too. So I thought it was really cool. Like I said, I don't know if that's like what block parties are normally always like, or like they're not, you know, like when I think of a block party, I think of like just like the streets, like everybody's just in the street, like you have the food set up and all that kind of stuff, like just in the street. Like that's what I thought I remembered when I was like little, but I don't know, maybe not. But you know, like maybe it wasn't as much that, but like I just remember like big groups of people like all standing in the street, whereas like they had like an inflatable like bouncy house and stuff like that, but they didn't have like a lot of like, and they had like the DJ like in the street too, like so people were like kind of out there dancing, like that kind of stuff. But like it wasn't, you know, it was more like everybody was kind of in their own like house and like lawn and stuff like that, like doing kind of whatever they were doing, which like I said was really fun. But it was just like, I don't know, I haven't, you know, like I said, my little bit of knowledge from when we lived at our old house. So I was like 3 years old, I think, when we had our last block party. So I don't really know, but it was really cool to get to go and hang out and all that kind of stuff. So anyways though, I'm going to take a shower and get to bed. I will see you guys in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love it if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye guys.